The afternoon press box with Matt Siegel is sponsored by the best cheesesteak in town from Penn Station East Coast Subs with 4 locations in Bellevue, Hermitage, Mount Juliet, and Murfreesboro on Sports Radio 560 on 95.9 FM.
The former NFL Executive of the Year, Jeff Diamond. I am Matt Siegel. You're in the afternoon press box, presented by Penn Station East Coast Subs, Nashville Sports Radio, 560 and 95.9 FM. So the NFL Combine is done, which means now we start to set our sights on the free agency period before the NFL Draft comes our way. But taking a look back at the NFL Combine, we'll do that right now as we're joined on our VIP hotline with Kirk Broussard, former interim coach with the Detroit Lions. There's a lot of scouting and knows his NFL football, knows those type of players that will pass his eye test, and we'll find out what guys did in Indy over this last NFL Combine. Kirk, great to have you on the show. Thanks for making some time for us.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
Doing really well. And, of course, one of the bigger storylines coming out of the Combine was the 40 time of Johnny Manziel and just the quarterback class in general. Now you have Ron Jaworski talking about how he wouldn't draft Johnny in the first 3 rounds. What did you see out of Johnny Manziel in the Combine? Does he pass your eye test?
Well, I mean, I didn't really get to see much because all he did was the measurables at the Combine. Of course, you'd like to see him throw, but I know some of those guys choose to kind of split it up, so they're not very fatigued when they actually get to the throwing part. They'll just split it up between pro day and Combine. But based on what I've seen over, as far as turning on the tape, I consider myself a big turning on the tape guy versus the Combine guy. And just turning on the tape, looking at a lot of his games in the past, I mean, to hear Jaworski come out and say that, I actually kind of sort of agree with him in a sense. Because I just know the NFL game requires a guy that's really consistent, and you don't see a lot of consistency out of Manziel. You do see a lot of big plays. He is a flashy player. He's very appealing to add to a roster. He'll definitely sell some tickets. But to look at him and evaluate him overall, and you ask yourself, I always put myself in the seat. If I am the NFL general manager and my job is on the line versus, that's going to say, okay, pick Manziel, you keep your job. Bust on Manziel, you lose your job. I'm not sure I would take that risk on my job to pick him in the first round. So I would see him go maybe late second, third round because, he is appealing. And with the right system, the right quarterback coach, you probably could get a lot out of him. But at this point, at this stage in his career, I think he could have used another year of college to develop more. And I kind of agree with Jaws in a sense on that.
Well, Kirk, if he gets that far into the draft, there'll be a lot of teams that'll be excited to see him there. Let's talk about another lightning rod player in Jadeveon Clowney. And now, if you're sitting in that GM seat, are you going to jump on him at the number 1 pick or the top 5 pick?
He's another one that I would not pick in my top 5. Out of Jadeveon, I need to see more motivation. I kind of agree with a lot of things that Warren Sapp said. At the Combine, he basically said, as a defensive lineman, you got to go on a hunt. You got to hunt every play. And I don't see Jadeveon Clowney hunting every play. When it comes to ability, I mean, the league has never seen anything like it. But are we going to be able to motivate him to hunt every play? I didn't see it in college. You couldn't do it on the Division I level in the SEC. I don't know if I would risk that in top 5. Of course, he's definitely top 5 talent, but the NFL has a saying that's really popular now, and that's that we don't draft players, we draft people. And it's a lot to be said in that. And I'm sure he's a great kid, but is he mature to have that motivation to hunt every play? And that's what I would require for me to pick him in the top 5.
But did you see it in his sophomore year, though, Kirk? Because that when he had 11 sacks and he had 20 tackles for loss and certainly seemed to play a lot harder. I agree with you. He took his junior year off, and he was protecting himself. There's no doubt. But you got to look at that sophomore year and say, wow, this was an impact guy. There's no doubt about that.
Correct. But then again, you have to ask yourself, is that the type of guy I want on my team? Do I want a guy that's going to take his junior year off on my team? Do I want to spend however many millions of dollars on a guy that's going to take a junior year off in the top 5 picks? Because the top 5 pick is very important. If you bust on that pick, it can set the franchise back, years and years. So it's a very, very delicate pick. You really have to be smart about it. And, you know, like I said, player-wise, ability, what he did in his freshman, sophomore year, you know, thrilled me. Looked very good. But do I want that character on my team? Do I want that consistency on my team? You know, if I'm going to pick a guy in the top 5, it needs to be a guy that I know for a fact can give me 3 or 4 Pro Bowls by the end of his career. I don't know if I can get that out of Xavier Clowney.
Kirk Broussard, former interim coach with the Detroit Lions, joining us here on our VIP hotline, Nashville Sports Radio 560 and 95.9 FM. Kirk, just looking at the Combine as a whole now that it's passed, give us a few players that really stuck out to you that weren't notable names going into this Combine, like an Aaron Dodd out of Pittsburgh or anybody, or any Aaron Donald, I should say, or anybody similar to that stature.
A few guys that immediately just come to mind when you ask that question. First guy would probably be Jalen Watkins, who a lot of people had under their radar, who's actually Sammy Watkins' brother, who came and performed really well. He's one of the top performers. I believe he clocked a 4.40. His hip looked great in all positional drills. He has great size. He's nearly 6 foot. He weighed in at 200 pounds. Very good reps on the bench. He's a guy that's really flying under the radar and really helped himself actually in the Combine. And then to keep the corner, I believe his name is Barrett. A little bit undersized, but his hips look great. He by far had the best hips and hands out of any of the position drills. And defensively, you know, with this game being a game, you know, that's geared toward the passing game, you got to stack up on DBs. This Barrett kid actually reminds me a lot of Cortland Finnegan, so a lot of you guys may know from the Nashville area that played the Titans.
Well, let's talk about Jordan Matthews from Vanderbilt, Kirk, and here's a guy that the question mark often was about his speed, his top-end speed, and he goes and, I think, surprised a lot of scouts at the Combine. It runs 4.46 in the 40, and how much do you think he helped his stock?
I think he helped himself. Just observing him in the positional drills, he has very natural hands. You can tell he's a very natural pass catcher. You cannot ignore the production that he had at Vanderbilt. I mean, tremendous. So I think just coming out and showing scouts that he can run an adequate 40 time, you know, at 4.6 was a thing that really helped him. I'm sure probably on his pro day he's going to run it again and probably shave a little bit more off of that. So I think he definitely helped himself. And it doesn't really require you to run a 4.340. I mean, it's just icing on the cake. If you can get a guy that's in that 4.5, 4.6 range, and you can teach him great release, and you can also teach him proper route running, really precise, great route running. I mean, the guy's already a natural pass catcher. I look for him to be able to come into a team and be a fifth receiver.
Kirk, looking at just the safety position entering this year's draft, there seems to be two predominant ones that are on everyone's big board. Clinton Dix out of Alabama, and then Calvin Pryor out of Louisville. How much of a gap, of a difference is there between those two players? Is there a wide margin of a drop-off between Dix and Pryor?
I think there's quite a gap, you know, on the edge, giving the edge to Clinton Dix. Just looking at him and observing him in the Combine, the thing that really, you know, that turned me off a little bit about him was he dropped a lot of balls in positional drills. And sometimes, you know, these guys can go to big stage and have a lot of nerves, you know, going on and drop balls. But with him playing with a huge school like Alabama, I just cannot see, you know, nerves really affecting him. But I think Dix definitely has the edge. He's the prototypical safety that you look for. I think everything else is measurable. He really stood out at the Combine. He just kind of caught me off guard with dropping a lot of the balls at the end of the positional drills. You know, in the NFL, you got to be able to finish, and it's definitely about turnovers. You know, high pointing the ball and getting the turnover. And so I hope that's something that he can pick up on at his pro day.
Kirk Broussard, former interim coach with the Detroit Lions, joining us here on our VIP hotline. And while you were with the Detroit Lions, you were actually the interim running backs coach. When you start to assess the running backs entering this year's draft, Jeff and myself, we have a pretty strong love affair with Auburn's Trey Mason. Who are a few other names that stick out to you, some of the top backs entering this draft?
Yeah, definitely Trey Mason really stands out. I know a lot of people kind of had James Wilder standing out of Florida State, but I'm not really a Wilder fan. The guy that I really like that's a little bit under the radar is Deontay Freeman. the other backs from Florida State. I really like him because I've been a big fan of the backs that are low to the ground with that great center of mass. And just the things that he was able to do at Florida State. He didn't get a lot of carries at Florida State. They kind of split carries, so he didn't have a lot of mileage on his body, which is great. And he's a guy that I think you guys should keep an eye on, Freeman, Florida State.
Well, Kirk, let's talk about the quarterback class. And I obviously you're not real high on Johnny Manziel, but who's your top quarterback as you look at this class coming out?
Bridgewater, without a doubt. I like Bridgewater. I like his toughness. I like the velocity on his ball. He's a guy that's just been a drop back passer. I mean, in high school. I mean, he's really what you need to win from the pocket in the NFL. I would like to see him add more weight. Something that can be corrected. He can bulk up a little bit, add more weight. But I really like Bridgewater. He stands out. If I had the first quarterback pick, he'd be my guy.
Despite the fact that he really hasn't played against a lot of tough components, and I've heard people talk about the footwork. Have you seen that also with Bridgewater?
Yeah, I have noticed some footwork errors, but I think it didn't really affect his accuracy. I mean, his system was pretty much designed for him to kind of produce high accuracy type of passing percentage. So that can be a little bit deceiving, but I just feel like, with correcting some of the minor footwork areas, I'm not really thrown off about the competition level that he played, because a lot of people may not know, out of high school, he was the nation's number 1, 2, 3 quarterback. He also was a Miami Hurricane commit. He could have easily went to Miami and put up those same numbers with a consistent coaching staff if Miami would have had that in place at the time. So, I mean, as far as talent level, he's always been a big name guy. So I'm not really thrown off about him playing at Louisville. I think he would have did the same thing anywhere he played. I think Urban Meyer's probably kicking himself that he didn't recruit in Florida because I think he had a lot of interest in Florida at one point.
He is Kirk Broussard, former interim coach with the Detroit Lions, and an unbelievable football mind when it comes to scouting and player evaluation. You can follow him on Twitter at Kirk Broussard _NFL. Kirk, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the program this afternoon, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Hey, guys, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you having me on, and best of luck to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kirk.
Real deep knowledge right there out of Kirk. We're on opposite ends when it comes to some players.
Sure.
But that's the beauty.
It's the nature of the beast.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Grabbing your reaction on the other side, 844-5600, 888-702-5494. Plus, is Tigers' time running out? We'll beg that question when we return. With Jeff Diamond, I am Matt Siegel. It's the Afternoon Press Box, presented by